The stars were silent, and for nearly 200 years, so were the humans. Galactic Council records marked Earth as extinct. A plague, they'd said. A virus so violent it wiped out a species known for war, survival, and unpredictability. Most were relieved. Humans were chaotic, unstable, and emotionally driven. The other races believed the galaxy was better off without them. Their colonies vanished, their signals stopped, their warships rusted in forgotten space. And so the memory of humanity faded into footnotes in academy lectures and campfire ghost stories. But deep beneath the surface of a backwater planet known as Nixar Prime, tremors started. At first, the locals thought it was a mining fault, maybe an old shaft collapsing. But then the quake didn't stop. It pulsed, a beat, like something breathing or waking up. High Lord Vashatar of the Kirill Dominion stood in the observation tower, staring down at the trembling ground with narrow, red-tinted eyes. "What kind of seismic activity is that?" he demanded, his voice sharp, guttural. A technician flinched. "It's not natural, my lord. The readings, this isn't tectonic. It's rhythmic, like machinery, ancient, massive machinery." "Where is it coming from?" "Sector 12, near the ruins." Ruins. The word hung heavy in the air. Everyone on Nixar Prime knew about the ruins, but no one dared touch them. They were made of dark alloys that didn't register in their systems, covered in carvings none could translate. Everyone assumed it was some forgotten race, a primitive one, long dead. But today, it wasn't dead. Not anymore. The shaking stopped suddenly, like the world was holding its breath. And then a message was broadcast. Not a word, not a language, but a sound. A low, rumbling tone that sent every translator, every comms system into glitching chaos. The technician stared at the screens, wide-eyed. Then came the voice. It was in Galactic Standard, but older, cracked, deep. "We remember." Silence followed. High Lord Vashatar took a step back from the console, his face pale despite his scaly skin. "Replay that," the message repeated. "We remember." The technician's hands shook. "That voice, it's human, my lord." "That's impossible, they're dead." "No, sir. That's a human male, mid-age vocal tone, terrestrial accent, old Earth, Earth as it was before extinction." The tower went quiet. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. Outside, the ground groaned again, and this time something emerged. A structure, a tower, sleek, black, and impossibly smooth, rising from the soil like it had always been there, buried under time and dust. Lights shimmered across its surface in patterns too fast to follow. "Seal Sector 12, Vashatar snapped. "And get me the High Council, now!" But it was already too late. The message had broadcast far beyond Nixar Prime. Across wormhole relays, through forgotten channels, the word spread like wildfire. "We remember." In the slums of Dalari Station, a drunk old scavenger dropped his drink when he heard the tone. "No way," he whispered, stumbling to his feet. "They're back?" After all this time? In the capital hall of the Uvir Empire, Empress Thalia froze mid-sentence as her council chamber vibrated faintly. "That sound," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's them, the ghosts of Earth." In the deepest archives of the Galactic Council, alarms blared, locked files opened themselves, restricted footage reactivated. Grainy footage of humans, fighting, screaming, surviving, flashed across holographic screens. Files stamped erased blinked into existence, and then, at the edge of a long-forgotten galaxy, a derelict human cruiser powered on. Its lights flared red, its weapons came online, and its captain, cryogenically frozen since the fall of Earth, opened his eyes. "Where the hell are we?" he whispered, voice raw and dry. A robotic voice answered from the console, glitching back to life. Earth is gone. Protocol Delta Red engaged. Enemy territory detected. Welcome back, Captain Riker. He rubbed his face, blinked at the blinking lights, and grinned. Then let's remind them who we are. Riker pulled himself out of the cryopod, groaning as stiff joints cracked like dry branches. His breath fogged in the cold air, but he was already moving, instincts kicking in. War memories didn't fade. They just waited, patient as ghosts. The ship's interior was dim, emergency lights painting the walls with eerie red glows. Dust floated in the air, undisturbed for what had to be centuries. He touched the wall as he staggered toward the command deck, fingertips brushing over old human steel, not alloy. Real Earth metal, built to last, built to endure when everything else burned. Status, he croaked. The voice of the ship's AI came alive, raspy, weathered by time. Cryo integrity compromised. All other crew deceased. Reactor at 37%. Primary weapons offline, navigation offline, communication partially restored. Riker stopped. All dead. Yes, Captain. You are the last. He stood silently for a moment, the weight of that truth pressing down on him like the vacuum outside. They'd all gone down with Earth. His friends, his brothers in arms, everyone. And yet, something had brought him back. Something had triggered the failsafe buried deep in this ship's core. Why was I reactivated? Protocol Delta Red, a human distress beacon was detected on Nixar Prime. Riker's jaw tightened. That's not one of ours. It is now. He made his way to the bridge. Dusty screens flickered to life as he stepped inside. Broken controls hummed. Old chairs lay overturned, and shattered glass from a long-forgotten firefight sparkled under his boots. Then he saw it. The beacon. A transmission wave so strong it punched through 4 light-years of dead signal. We remember. He narrowed his eyes. That wasn't a distress call. That was a warning. Patch me into whatever's left of our long-range scanners, he said. The screen sputtered and cleared. Nixar Prime. A mining world on the edge of Chiral Dominion space. He zoomed in. One tall black tower stood in the middle of a scarred valley. Alien troops surrounded it. Ships hovered overhead, scanning, threatening. Guess someone woke up the wrong damn relic, Riker muttered. But something didn't add up. That tower, it wasn't of alien design. No smooth curves, no radiant metal. It was ugly, hard, and practical, human design. Old Earth military architecture built to intimidate and survive. AI, can you ID that structure? Scanning, match found. Project Revenant, Deep Earth Contingency Facility. Location, Earth Sector 9, 2143 designation. Status, lost. His breath caught in his throat. That was one of the failsafe bunkers Earth's Defense Corps built when the plague first started spreading. Not a cure lab, a revenge protocol. They weren't trying to survive. They were trying to make sure humanity wouldn't be forgotten. And now it was awake, which meant it had detected enemies. Who controls that sector now? Riker asked. The Chiral Dominion. Of course, the Chirals, arrogant lizard-faced bastards who once demanded humanity surrender their homeworld or face extermination. He remembered those threats. He remembered the war. He remembered the silence after Earth fell. No help came. No allies stood. The galaxy watched the last human cries fade into static, and moved on. Not anymore, Riker growled. Not this time. He activated the old comms panel. Patch me into any open frequency around Nixar Prime. I want them to hear me. Static hissed, then cleared. This is Captain Elias Riker of the Terran Defense Command. If you're hearing this, congratulations. You pissed off the wrong species. We're not extinct, we're not forgotten, and we sure as hell aren't forgiving." He leaned in, eyes cold. "Back away from that tower, or I swear I'll bring the war back to your doorstep." He cut the feed. On Nixar Prime, panic erupted across the command centers of the Kyril. The message had gone through, loud and clear. And though many of the younger soldiers didn't understand the gravity of what they'd heard, the elders did. They remembered the humans, not through stories, through scars, through the silence of fleets that never returned. High Lord Vashatar clenched his claws. "Mobilize all ground forces. Contain that structure. If any human artifact is active, destroy it." But it was too late. The tower pulsed once, then twice, and then it spoke. "Targets identified. Response protocol, Earth's vengeance." Turrets unfolded from the structure's sides. A shield snapped into place. Lights blazed across its face, and in orbit above, Riker's ship, once dead, powered its engines and turned toward Nixar Prime, vengeance in its trajectory. The engines of the Resolute howled to life like a beast reborn. Dust and ice broke free from its hull as the ship angled itself toward Nixar Prime, lights flickering with purpose for the first time in centuries. Inside, Captain Riker stood like a man dragged out of hell with one purpose: make the galaxy remember why humans were feared. He tapped at the console, rerouting dwindling power toward propulsion and weapons. The systems groaned, but obeyed. Every panel he touched came alive under his fingers, like the ship remembered him, like it had been waiting. "Weapon status?" he asked. 2 forward railguns partially functional, 1 plasma core cannon offline. Missile systems degraded, but 2 warheads remain viable. He smirked. "Two's enough." As the Resolute broke orbit, the ship's sensors locked onto Nixar Prime. The tower below was surrounded. Hundreds of alien soldiers, armored transports, gunships. High Lord Vashatar had called in everything. He wasn't taking chances. He had seen the message, and unlike the rest of his kind, he understood it. They were standing on a sleeping giant's grave, and they just heard it whisper. On the ground, the black tower crackled with kinetic energy. A force field shimmered over it like a living shell. The ancient human technology wasn't just reactivating, it was evolving, syncing with planetary systems it hadn't touched in lifetimes. Inside its core, something stirred. Old programs reawakened, and long-dead voices echoed through the deep. "This is Colonel Mendez of Earth's Last Defense. If you're hearing this, Project Revenant is active. The plague is over, but our rage remains. Initiate Contingency 0. All non-human presences detected will be categorized as threats. All threats will be eliminated." The tower began to hum louder, the ground around it vibrating. Kyril soldiers took defensive stances, shouting in their guttural tongue. Some fled. Others stood, aiming their plasma rifles at the impossible. Then came the first strike. A beam of blinding white light erupted from the tower's tip, slicing through the sky like divine judgment. One of the Dominion's gunships exploded mid-air, debris raining down in flames. High Lord Vashatar roared, "All units, attack!" But it didn't matter. The tower had already scanned the entire battlefield. It knew every threat, every unit, every weakness. Automated turrets unfolded and unleashed calculated death. High-frequency railguns tore through Kyril armor like paper. Shockwaves rippled through the valley as mines buried beneath the soil decades ago activated, flinging enemy vehicles into the air like toys. And then, above them, the Resolute entered the atmosphere, a falling star of vengeance. Riker sat in the pilot's chair, sweat running down his face as he manually steered the old warship into battle. "They wanted extinction," he muttered. "Let's show 'em what resurrection looks like." He targeted the heaviest Dominion transport, An airborne command barge packed with troops. The screen blinked red. Locked. He hit the trigger. One of the 2 remaining nuclear-class warheads detached from the ship with a quiet thunk, then rocketed downward in a streak of vengeance. The Kyril didn't have time to react. The explosion cracked the sky. A thunderclap of fire and light consumed the command barge, vaporizing hundreds of troops in seconds. The blast wave flattened half the battlefield. Kyril soldiers scattered in blind panic, screaming, their once proud formation reduced to chaos. Inside the Dominion's base command post, Vashatar stared at the firestorm with disbelief. "He's mad," he hissed. "A suicidal human relic." "No," whispered one of his aides, shaking with fear. "He's not mad. He's angry." On the tower, a sealed hatch opened. A figure stepped out, tall, human, dressed in black combat armor bearing the faded insignia of Earth's fallen defense forces. He was old, decades past his prime, but his eyes burned with something more dangerous than youth. Purpose. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence said enough. A survivor, a soldier, a ghost. The Dominion had taken his people, his planet, his future. Now he would take everything back. Riker circled overhead, scanning the field. The tower was holding, but it wouldn't last forever. The Dominion had thousands of troops still inbound. Orbiting warships would be rerouted within hours. "This is just the beginning," he muttered. And he was right. In deep space, signals bounced between forgotten satellites, across derelict colonies, old ships, hidden bunkers, everywhere humanity had once touched, forgotten places, abandoned dreams, woke up at once. We remember, we return, we retaliate. The galaxy didn't react well to ghosts. Within hours of the battle on Nixar Prime, the Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Holograms of the major species flickered into the chamber, each delegation wearing the same expression. Confusion coated in fear. "This can't be possible," rasped the Uvir emissary, her blue scales dull under the chamber's artificial light. "Humans were eradicated. We all saw the collapse. We all signed the Extinction Accord." High Archon Belek of the Ishari pounded the stone table with a tentacle. "You signed the Extinction Accord. We simply stopped sending aid. There was no confirmation, just silence." A new voice, calm and cold, echoed across the chamber. "It was enough for you." Everyone turned. The projection showed a man, standing in the ruins of a Dominion outpost, black combat armor, Earth emblem across his chest. He was bleeding from a cut on his brow, but he didn't seem to notice. Captain Riker. "This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is a message." The chamber grew still. "You watched Earth die. You let it die. And when we were gone, you carved up our colonies like vultures. But we are not extinct. We are not forgotten. And we are not alone." He stepped aside. Behind him, the black tower on Nixar Prime loomed like a monolith, still pulsing with energy. The Kyril troops had either fled or lay dead around it. Human tech, archaic yet unstoppable, had held the line. "We're waking up," Riker said, "and this time we remember everything." Then the message cut off. Silence choked the chamber. No one spoke. Finally, the Ishari Archon whispered, "What happens when a ghost comes back for justice?" Across the galaxy, that question was already being answered. On the outer moons of Xandor 6, a forgotten mining facility came online. A distress beacon encoded with human war signatures blasted across 6 systems. In the debris fields of Altheron Drift, 3 long-dead Terran cruisers suddenly reactivated. Their hulls were mangled, their cores barely stable, but they powered up like they had never slept. And on the prison world of Dralaxis, human prisoners, descendants of Earth soldiers left to rot, broke free, old tattoos on their skin, old loyalty in their bones. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted vengeance. Back on Nixar Prime, Riker walked through the battlefield, stepping over Dominion bodies without flinching. The air still sizzled with radiation from his ship's warhead. The tower behind him had gone quiet again, content after its first breath of retribution. The old soldier from the tower, his name was Harlan Voss, fell into step beside Riker. His armor clanked with age, but he carried himself like a man reborn. "How many of us are left?" Riker asked, without looking at him. Voss sighed. "Hard to say. The Revenant protocol buried caches on dozens of worlds. Cryo-soldiers like me. We were supposed to be insurance. If Earth fell, we'd be the fire that followed." Riker glanced at him. "And now?" "We're awake. You lit the match." Riker stared out across the smoking battlefield. "Then let's burn everything they built on our bones." Above them, the Resolute hovered silently, its hull scorched but proud. The ship was barely alive, held together by stubbornness and rust. But it didn't matter. It had a mission again. And in space, a ship with purpose is a weapon. "Broadcast to any surviving Terran units," Riker ordered. "Message is simple. The fire's back on. And we're not done yet." As the message left the system, a signal answered. Old Terran code. He recognized it instantly. TSS Revenant. Status: alive. ETA: 3 days. Full crew. Weapons hot. Riker smiled, just a little. The Revenant, one of the last of the Titan-class warships. Earth had lost her at the Battle of Lyra's Gate, or so everyone thought. Now it was coming home. Voss looked up at the sky, blinking against the smoky clouds. "Think they'll fight us again?" Riker didn't answer for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, "They should run." But they wouldn't. He knew these alien empires. Prideful, ruthless. They'd look at humanity's return and see only weakness, old tech, small numbers, rusted ships and tired soldiers. And that was their mistake. They didn't understand what kept a human fighting when there was nothing left to fight for. Not survival, not conquest. Memory. The memory of everything they lost, and the fury that came with it. 3 days later, the sky over Nixar Prime split open. Not with light, but with the silence of something massive arriving. The TSS Revenant emerged from slipspace like a god crawling out of the void. No fanfare, no warning. Just a silent shudder across local gravity wells as the last of Earth's Titan-class warships returned to a galaxy that forgot what true power looked like. It was enormous. Nearly 3 kilometers of war-forged steel, blackened from old battles, covered in scars that told stories no one had lived long enough to write. Its engines still roared with the old red glow of Earth's warcore tech, ancient and barely understood by anyone alive. On its hull, the Terran flag was faded but visible. Earth blue, battle-worn gray, and the White Eagle curled into a strike position. Riker stood on a rocky ridge outside the tower with Harlan Voss, watching it descend into orbit like a promise made in steel. "You ever serve with her?" Voss asked, nodding toward the massive ship. Riker nodded slowly. "Yeah. Once, during the siege of Talos Reach, she took on a fleet of 20 Dominion warships and came back with 17 of their flags welded to her hull." Voss gave a low whistle. "And the other 3? Vaporized." As the Revenant settled into geosynchronous orbit, dozens of drop pods fired from its belly, burning trails into the atmosphere. Within moments, the valley shook again, but not from enemy fire this time. From the arrival of more humans. From Terran soldiers. Cryo-survivors. Deep sleeper battalions. Forgotten warriors thawed out by the reactivation beacon. They hit the dirt with precision, weapons drawn, armor scratched but deadly. One by one they pulled themselves to their feet, slow, stiff, eyes adjusting, but in each of them was that unmistakable fire. Humanity hadn't just survived, it had waited, and now it was ready. Riker approached the nearest pod. The soldier inside looked barely 20, but the markings on her armor showed she was part of the elite Sledgehammer Division, Earth's orbital siege specialists. She looked at him, confused. "Captain Riker?" "Yeah," he said. "Welcome back to Hell." The soldier laughed, a hard, bitter sound. "About damn time." In orbit, the Revenant sent out a message across every open frequency in the system. It didn't hide. It didn't encrypt. It wanted to be heard. "This is the Terran warship Revenant. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. This world is under human protection. Any interference will be met with force. Try us." The Dominion tried. An entire armada. Within hours, the Kirill launched a retaliatory strike fleet, 60 warships, 2 dreadnoughts, and a command carrier. The Galactic Council didn't stop them. They encouraged it. They wanted to see if the humans were bluffing. They weren't. As the first Dominion ships came into range, the Revenant moved like a ghost. Its ancient AI, codename Helix, had survived all this time, and it remembered the playbook. The old war protocols activated. Massive anti-ship railguns unfolded from the spine of the vessel. Auto-defense turrets tracked incoming fighters. The main cannon, the God Strike, charged with a sound that echoed in the bones of the living and the memory of the dead. The Dominion fired first. Missiles, plasma lances, kinetic barrages. Most didn't even make it past the Revenant's shields. And then the ship answered. One round from the God Strike. Just one. The lead dreadnought disappeared in a flash of atomic light, reduced to atoms. The blast wave crippled 2 more ships before they could even react. Terran fighters, small, fast, vicious, swarmed from the belly of the Revenant, tearing into Kirill squadrons with pinpoint aggression. Down below, Riker watched the battle unfold through a tactical uplink. "No mercy," he muttered. "Not this time." The surviving Dominion ships retreated, limping, bleeding fuel into the void, their arrogance shattered. And still the Revenant remained. No victory speech, no demand, just presence. The galaxy felt it. Across alien capitals, panicked meetings were held in dark rooms. If the humans had one Titan-class ship, how many more were buried, forgotten, waiting? What else had Earth left behind in its death? Riker stood in the wind on Nixar Prime, armor streaked with ash and dust. He looked up at the stars, knowing that soon they'd all come looking. Not just the Dominion, not just the Council. All of them. And they would come not with curiosity, but with fear. Good. Because Earth was no longer asking for a seat at the table. It was flipping the whole damn table over. The smoke hadn't cleared before the lies began. On the far side of the galaxy, in the glittering heights of the Galactic Council citadel, a different kind of war ignited. A war of politics, propaganda, and fear. Holograms flickered to life across media networks, each broadcasting a new spin on the reawakening of humanity. Some called it a miracle. Most called it a threat. "Human war relics have reappeared in Dominion space," hissed the Valari newscasters, their 3 tongues flicking as they spoke. "And already hundreds lie dead. They claim it is defense. We call it terrorism." The council held a closed session, but everyone knew the truth. There was panic behind those walls. Fear thick as oil. For 2 centuries, the galaxy had grown without humans. Sure, their tech had been scavenged, their worlds divided like leftovers. But humans themselves? Extinct. Easy to forget. Easier to erase. But now, one ship had returned. One tower. One man. and the system was already shaking. Back on Nixar Prime, Riker was in no mood for speeches. The Revenant was wounded from the battle, 3 reactor cores running at 60%, hull fractures along the left flank. But it held position like a dare carved into the stars. "Status?" Riker asked, stepping onto the bridge. The AI Helix responded immediately. "We've detected Council surveillance drones in system. Cloaked. 5, maybe more. Intercepted 1 Dominion communique. They're spinning the engagement as unprovoked aggression." Riker laughed darkly. "Of course they are." Voss leaned against the wall nearby, helmet tucked under his arm. "You expected them to welcome us with flowers?" "No," Riker said. "But I didn't expect them to act surprised either." He walked to the center of the bridge, pulled up the latest intel feed from the Council's encrypted network. Human tech still cracked their encryption like wet paper. Nothing had changed there, and what he saw made his blood simmer. A proposed emergency coalition, not to support humanity, to contain it. 7 empires, joint fleet, immediate deployment, preemptive strike authorization. "We're not just a threat now," Riker muttered. "We're a virus to them." He turned to the comms officer. "Send this to the surviving human colonies, the ghost colonies. I want everyone listening, no more hiding, no more shame." The officer hesitated. "And if the Council intercepts?" "Let them." The message went out within the hour. "To every human left in the dark, this is Captain Elias Riker. I don't know where you are, what you've been forced to become, or how long you've been waiting, but the waiting's over. We're not forgotten anymore, and we don't ask for peace from those who buried us. We take it. If you can fight, if you can stand, rise now. Earth may be gone, but we're still here, and we remember." Across the galaxy, the signal echoed. In the slums of Barathis, a woman with a scar down her cheek grabbed an old Terran rifle hidden under floorboards and kissed the barrel. "Told you they'd come back." On a forgotten moon farm in the Hadean Reach, a boy with rusted dog tags around his neck stared at the blinking transmission, eyes wide. "Dad, they're real." On a black site prison orbiting the acidic clouds of Zora 7, 12 inmates with Earth-born blood overpowered their keepers and began carving Earth's emblem into the steel walls. It was no longer a whisper. It was a storm. The Council scrambled, but it was too late. Humanity wasn't centralized. There was no homeworld to bomb, no singular capital to siege. Earth had become an idea, a ghost in the machine, a flame inside exiles, scavengers, prisoners, orphans, and soldiers who had nothing left but memory, and the rage that memory brings. The Dominion, still licking its wounds from Nixar Prime, issued a formal declaration. They called humans a galactic hazard, unpredictable, dangerous, violent. Riker didn't argue. He leaned back in his chair aboard the Revenant, smirking at the headlines pouring in. Earth descendants claim sovereignty in Chiral space. Titan-class warship defies peace protocols. Council to vote on human extermination order. Voss entered with a datapad and tossed it on the table. "They're offering a ceasefire," he said, "but only if we disarm." Riker didn't even glance at it. "Tell them we accept." Voss blinked. "Wait, really?" Riker grinned, but his eyes stayed cold. "Yeah, we'll disarm." Then he stood and walked towards the viewport, staring out into the black. "Right after we take their damn arms first." The ceasefire lasted exactly 8 hours. It wasn't meant to. The Council knew what it was: a political stunt, a delay tactic. They hoped to stall humanity long enough to assemble the coalition fleet, to coordinate orbital strikes that would flatten every known Terran relic before another ghost could rise. But humans didn't wait anymore. They struck first. The first blow came from a colony no one knew still existed: New Thessalon. Once a thriving agricultural hub, it had been quarantined during the collapse. No records, no survivors. At least, that's what the Council claimed. They were wrong. As the ceasefire settled like dust, orbital satellites detected power signatures from New Thessalon's northern hemisphere. The readings were dismissed as natural interference, until an entire Chiral scout cruiser vanished from orbit. No explosion, no debris, just silence. A day later, it reappeared, slammed into the hull of a Council diplomatic ship orbiting Ivaris Prime. Whoever had taken it had turned the entire vessel into a guided missile. Both ships vaporized on impact, and the message was clear. Humanity would not be bargained with. Back aboard the Revenant, Riker stood on the strategy deck, watching holograms flicker and shift. More colonies were rising, some organized, some feral, all of them armed, all of them angry. New Thessalon just declared war on the Chiral, Voss reported. Didn't even ask us. They hijacked the old defense satellites and launched them like spears. Took out a cruiser formation over Sector Z-13. Riker nodded slowly. Good. Voss frowned. You're not worried about coordination? Half of them are acting on emotion. No chain of command, no strategy, just pure rage. Exactly, Riker said. That's why they can't win, but they can start the fire. He stepped closer to the holomap. Red markers were popping up everywhere now, dots of resistance, pockets of fury. We don't need an empire, Riker said. We need chaos. We need the galaxy to realize that everywhere they walk, a human might be waiting to remind them. Voss was quiet. Then, you want fear. I want balance, Riker corrected. They built this galaxy on our bones. It's time they felt what it's like to step on a graveyard. Just then, a signal came through. Encrypted. Terran military protocol. Riker recognized the code immediately. Origin, TSS Valor. Status, hostile engagement underway. Coordinates attached. Reinforcements requested. The Valor had been one of Earth's last war frigates, believed destroyed in the final evacuation of the Europa colonies. If it was broadcasting now, it meant another ghost had risen. Riker didn't hesitate. Plot a jump. Voss raised a brow. You want to leave Nixar Prime? She can defend herself, Riker said, glancing toward the black tower, now surrounded by automated turrets and perimeter mines. They've sent drones and spy ships. Every time the tower warns them before it fires, it wants them to remember what it's capable of. And what about us? Riker's eyes burned. We're going to give them something new to remember. Minutes later, the Revenant began to hum. Slipspace drives warmed up, glowing a deep red from the power of its triple cores. The ship didn't shudder. It growled, like a predator waking up for another hunt. The jump was short, only 2 systems away. But as the ship exited the void, it entered chaos. The Valor was under siege. 3 Dominion warships circled it like vultures, picking away at its shields, broadcasting demands for surrender. The Revenant didn't send a warning. It fired. Twin railguns punched through the first Dominion ship before they even noticed the newcomer. Explosions danced across space like fireworks. The second ship turned. Too late. The Revenant's dorsal turrets came online, spitting flak and plasma. The third tried to escape, launching decoy flares. It didn't matter. A barrage from the port-side batteries ripped it apart mid-warp attempt. The Valor didn't ask questions. It linked up instantly. Its commander, Captain Mara Loon, appeared on Riker's screen, her face scarred, her voice steady. We were about to go down swinging. Riker smiled. That's how we do it. The 2 ships turned in unison, engines flaring, as they burned a trail straight through the heart of the Dominion patrol sector. One battle turned into 5, and every system they passed through lit up with rebellion. Terran war chants echoed across hijacked frequencies. alien citizens watched in awe and fear as the legend of human ghosts became undeniable. And somewhere, in the deepest reaches of Council space, a hidden file opened itself for the first time in 178 years. Project Silencer. Humanity status: containment failure. Recommended action: extinction protocol. Reactivate. They didn't even bother to hide it anymore. The Galactic Council dropped all pretense. No more diplomacy, no more ceasefire offers, no more carefully worded statements about containment and de-escalation. The vote was unanimous. Earth's remnants were to be exterminated. Not negotiated with, not studied, not spared. Extinction protocol was greenlit, something only whispered about in the darkest corners of the archives. A plan born during Earth's collapse, a failsafe, a genocide wrapped in justification. They had waited centuries to unleash it. Now they didn't hesitate. It started with Black Ops fleets, ships with no insignia, no registration, crewed by mercenaries and Council loyalists bred without names. They hit ghost colonies first, places where humans had just begun to rebuild. They didn't land. They didn't warn. They burned. 3 settlements gone in under 6 hours. No survivors. No signals. Just ash. The Revenant got the first distress signal from a boy no older than 10, his voice trembling. They're coming out of the sky. They don't speak. They just kill. Please, someone. The line went dead. Riker stood in silence, staring at the broken transmission. Across the command deck, no one moved. Helix's voice came through, quieter than usual. Extinction protocol confirmed. Phase 1 has begun. Estimated 6 days until full system cleansing. Voss stepped forward, fists clenched. They want a war. Let's give them one. Riker didn't speak. He simply turned to the main screen, tapped 3 buttons, and entered an ancient override code. Teranova Protocol. Unsealed Helix hesitated. Are you sure, Captain? Teranova was never tested. The side effects. Riker's voice cut through the AI's protests. Do it. Moments later, across a dozen hidden bunkers in fringe space, something began to stir. Not weapons, not ships. People. Humans enhanced beyond recognition. Sleeper units. Bioengineered during the final days of Earth's fall. Frozen before they could be deployed. Monsters made in the image of vengeance. The Teranova soldiers. They didn't scream when they woke. They didn't panic. They just stood, silent, focused, waiting for orders. And Riker gave them only one. Make the galaxy feel us. The Revenant went dark after that. No signals, no lights, just a slow, terrifying crawl toward the Council's inner systems. The galaxy watched. Fleets scrambled, borders shut, refugees fled. But it wasn't enough. The Terran resistance was no longer scattered. It was unified under one promise: no more running. The first strike landed on Veraxis Prime, a Council jewel world known for its wealth, its towers, its arrogance. Within 30 minutes, those towers were rubble. 1 Teranova unit, 11 soldiers, reduced the planet's capital to dust. No bombs, no ships, just fury in human skin. Across the stars, resistance groups under the Terran banner rose like wildfire. Smugglers turned into fleet commanders. Farmers became saboteurs. Children delivered coded messages between systems, while old war veterans lit beacons hidden since Earth's fall. The galaxy was no longer fighting humans. They were fighting a memory with teeth. And memories don't die. In the final hours, the Council made a desperate move. They gathered their entire coalition fleet, 300 ships, outside the fortress planet of Virelion. The last line, the fall back. Riker knew they'd be waiting. He didn't care. The Revenant appeared like a specter, backed by the Valor and 5 reawakened Terran warships. Behind them came the Swarm, Dozens of rearmed civilian ships, retrofitted transports, freighters strapped with scrap cannons, an army built from nothing. Riker stood at the front of the Revenant, armor scarred, eyes alive with fire. "No more talking," he said, and then he charged. The final battle wasn't clean, it wasn't glorious, it was chaos, brutal, dirty, relentless. But for every Terran ship that fell, 3 Council cruisers went with it. For every human lost, the rest fought harder. And in the end, it was Riker's warhead, the last one aboard the Revenant, that sealed the fate of the Council fleet. He flew it himself, straight into the flagship. As the explosion lit the stars in a nova of white fire, Helix's final message echoed through every channel. Humanity is not a species, it is a force. You cannot erase rage, you cannot kill a ghost, and you cannot bury what remembers. The war didn't end that day, but the message was clear. The galaxy had forgotten humans. Now, it would never forget them again.